So next up, we have got a crawl, walk, run approach to personalization and gated content. We're diving into website personalization strategies now. So let's join Jake Toohey, who is Director and Association Practice at Adage Technologies, and Theodore Davis, Director of Digital Experiences Strategy at the National Association of Corporate Directors, for a look into how his team approached digital transformation. Please welcome Jake and Theodore.
Thank you. All right, thank you for having us, Kevin and Sherry, of course, for another great Tuesday. We are talking about a crawl, walk, run approach to personalization. I think Jason from Impexium had talked about the same kind of approach for automation. So we certainly approve of that approach for anything when you're trying to push things forward. So before we get started, I want to talk about association channels and how you produce so much content over so many domains. There are so many places, and we call you like content factories, but the real question is, are you delivering relevant information to your members? My name is Jake Toohey. I'm the director of our association practice at Adage, and I am joined by our wonderful client, Ted Davis, fresh off the plane from New York.
Yep, just flew in this morning. Ted Davis, director of digital experience and strategy. I'm also a professor at NYU, where I teach digital marketing and campaign strategy. Really excited to be here. Thanks, Jake.
So real quickly about Adage, we're a strategy, design, and development firm that's dedicated to making purposeful digital experiences for associations. And what does that mean? That means that we have a full suite of resources that are dedicated to strategy, branding, design, development, and analytics. Strategy is content strategy, digital strategy, audience understanding. Branding is if you're looking to refresh current brand for digital or a full rebrand. Design, we have UX, UI resources on staff so that things don't just look pretty, but they work well for your members. Development is CMS-driven websites, e-commerce sites, web portals, web applications that are integrated with your different systems so that you can personalize. And then, of course, continuous improvement with analytics. Our tagline is technology advancing purpose, and we do believe that our purpose is to advance yours, and we work with associations of all different sizes, and we're talking about NACD today.
Right. Thank you. So NACD, the National Association of Corporate Directors. We, like you, service our members. We are a collective of over 24,000 corporate directors, and that's everything from super big, Fortune 100 companies, right down to small associations or not-for-profits who are there to deliver a mission. We have 22 chapters that serve over 35 locations across the country. We are a US-based organization. And what we do is, our mission is to empower directors to make sure their boards are future ready. It's really important for us to keep in mind that corporate directors don't manage companies, they manage management. And that was something that I had to learn coming in, and that really significantly changed my approach to the digital experience. How do we do that? Well, like a lot of you, we develop lots and lots of content. We currently have about 4,400 pages on our website. We do education, around 400 programs a year across our chapter network and nationally. And we have a credentialing system for being a certified director, which really translates to you have the skills and you demonstrated the expertise necessary to help those boards be more effective over time. So a little bit about our personalization journey. I'm just going to tell a little story that when I started, I was like, great, what's the website experience like for our members? They're like, well, we send an email and they go and download the article. I was like, okay, but they can read it online, right? And they're like, no, we download a PDF. And I was like, okay, well, we got work to do here. So, we really had to start to think about going back to what Gates said. This is one prediction he's got right? Content is king, all the way back in 1996. And that is true for associations, and especially true for us because we provide unbiased, really expert opinion on different subjects of governance, to the extent that We work with government and we work with regulatory agencies and we consult with companies on how simply to do better. So we ask ourselves, how do we deliver that value to our members so they can be more effective? Well, that sort of just sounds like an association, right? How do you serve your members? So we had to get a little bit more detailed. How do we anticipate our members' needs and demonstrate our empathy to their journey? And that sense of empathy is really, really why we care about personalization.
So real quickly, just some personalization numbers. 89% of marketers that spend $1 see a $20 return on their personalization spend. 3 out of 4 businesses believe that it's critical to their success. And it used to be that this was a differentiator for companies if they would personalize their content. Now it's kind of table stakes. And 2/3 of customers actually expect brands to understand their wants and needs. So obviously it's something that's very important to everybody, or to most everybody that your members, all of your members today.
Right. So how do we do that? Well, one of the things we had to understand is who are our members. So any wild guess on the average age of a corporate director? It's between 65 and early 70s, essentially. These are not necessarily an audience that is traditionally considered digitally native. That's changing. A new generation of directors are coming in and they have different expectations. We are never going to be Google, we are on, but that's their standard. That's their baseline. So, so we think about it in 3 phases. Crawl, walk, run. Crawl is one to all, one to many. We say one thing essentially to our entire audience. We get a little bit more granular and it's one to some. And then this sort of BHAG of personalization is that one-to-one relationship with your user or your member. And that has to be dynamic at any given time based upon their need. And that's why we think first, we had to go through a whole process of identifying what do our members really need? And what is that condition when they come to our site? So we think about it this is based on research that you can, great articles in HBR about, but essentially functional content. Help me understand, teach me something, educate me. I need to know about audit committee. I'm going into a committee next week. Tell me what I need to know. Is it worth my time? This is really, we often think about this in like e-commerce. Is it worth spending money on? But spending time, especially for a corporate director, is massive. I have 10 minutes. Am I going to read that article or am I going to do something else? And we have to make that valuable to them. And then that empathy, they expect to be treated extraordinarily well. They expect us to share their values. And when we are able to demonstrate that, we get stickiness with our directors. So what are the things we think about? What are their motivations? What are their behaviors? Very interestingly, someone might be sitting on an audit committee, but they have a passion for AI or technology. What they consume might be very different than their role, and we have to understand those motivations, behaviors, their digital needs. Do they come often? Do they come rarely? Do they come just in time for a board meeting and they kind of do a deep dive and get ready? Or do they consume content over a longer period of time? And so to start, you have to decide where in that journey do you want to insert your personalization? Everyone's like, well, every step should be personalized. Well, you can't do that in a crawl, walk, run approach. You have to think about it. Where am I going to start? And for us, that is the beginning of their journey. Because we truly believe that a small amount of personalization drives an emotional response. And an emotional response is what generates better engagement over time. So as a strategist, I can't avoid Venn diagrams. So you're going to see a couple today. There are 3 considerations in personalization. One is, what does our member need? And then what is our business goal? We have organizational goals, we have membership goals, we have attendance goals, But we also have content consumption goals. We consider a certain amount of content consumption a point of conversion. And then do we have the technology, or can we acquire the technology and able to deliver those experiences at scale? And our goal through this strategy is to simply make that point of intersection bigger. We can become more relevant, achieve better business goals, and leverage our technology more effectively. Another Venn diagram. At any given point in time, we had to realize that what we want to talk about, which is a lot, when you have a whole team of subject matter experts, there's a lot of stuff we want to talk about. And what they're interested at any given point in time, there's a little sliver of relevance. And we try to formalize that into our content strategy, into our personalization strategy. How do we make that part bigger? How do we make that overlap more effective? And we had to look at the whole structure. So even before we could crawl, we had to think through all these steps. The content creation, are we able to version the content for things like a member or non-member or a public board or a private board or not-for-profit board? What's the style how we speak? In a printed report, we're quite formal. But on the website, can we be less formal? How do we make that accommodation? It becomes easier to read. And then delivery. Are we delivering on a website, in an app, on mobile? Or is it in an event? Or is it a combination of these things? And then how do we get them to think about it? How do we get them into that funnel of content consumption? So let's talk about the crawl, walk, run approach we looked at. We thought of it this way. We started with very simple binaries. And for us, that was member, non-member. It might be for you, domestic or overseas. Is it a new member or an existing member? It could be aspiring director, current director, emeritus director. So we tried to think about all those simple binaries. We could then create different points of personalization. And I'm going to be really transparent. We are somewhere between crawl and walk. So it's not like we've done everything. This is the approach we're taking to get to run. To walk, we start to layer on what other data points do we have available that can drive that personalized experience. So we invested in a data platform that tracks everything. It's all first-party data. It's no issue there. And what we're able to do is see people who come to the site, what content do they consume? And this is identified both by their Salesforce ID as well as their email address. We can see what emails they've received. Have they opened them? Have they clicked on them? Have they downloaded a report? And we look at all this and we're able to create dynamic segments. So people who may have opened an email in the last 30 days and visited a certain page we can send that has to do with certification, we can have a piece of content related to certification to prompt them towards that journey. Frequency, it comes as a surprise sometimes that of a membership group of 24,000, that we may only have a few hundred visitors a day on some days, because at any given point in time, that little area of relevance might be quite small. And then to run, we start thinking about anticipation, AI, machine learning. How do we make sure we have those experiences ready? We are not ready for that right now, but we have the technology, we have the business, and we understand the needs to get there. And one of the things that's really urgent is that we had to be really honest with ourselves about our content. Was it tagged correctly? Did we really understand why we wrote it? I heard someone say like, oh, we did something because it was a hunch. Well, we hear all the time, and my colleagues are here, I think our members need to, want to read about this. And I'm like, okay, how are we going to validate that? Because once we start writing that and creating that content, that's something, then there's something else we're not creating. We believe that in the next couple of years, we'll probably have some sort of experience where someone will simply chat, like a chat GPT, type in, I'm a director on a public board and I'm getting ready for my board meeting, and I've got to understand what's happening in the audit space. And it will give us a nice, on the fly accurate, and that's key for us. It has to be accurate content that will answer that question, and then provide all the other resources and source material from which that answer came. So some issues that we've had to manage to, essentially, and not in any particular order, but for us, one of the most important things was our culture. When I started at NACD about 2.5 years ago, it was an incredibly siloed organization. And we had to create a tiger team with representatives from 4 stakeholders that would come together and architect the solution so that everyone had a voice in that solution, but we were able to align and then sort of democratize that information across the org. Buy-in. It is really hard for an organization like ours, who we consider essentially storytellers, not just like report makers, we're storytellers. You know, how do we let go of our ability to craft the story? How do we let the user, the member, decide what order and how they want to consume the content? You know, those feedback loops, what are your existing methods of data analysis? Do you have voice of the customer? Do you have qualitative and quantitative resources? You know, some of our qualitative stuff, we did a study early on where we asked members, how do you see our content organized? And we took the same study, we deployed it to our staff and said, how do you think our content is organized? And as a siloed organization, everyone thought their content was a straight line to the member. Our members actually saw us in sort of bifurcated. Content that helps me be a better director, and content that gives me the opportunity to learn, network, and collaborate. And so it was really eye-opening that how our members saw us was so very different, and that had to inform our strategy. So key takeaways, let's do a little personalization, because we're not here to just give you takeaways, we're here to give you inspirations. Take the information you already know and inspire them to take one more click. We're not going to boil the ocean. Just one incremental step forward is a great place to start. And that demonstrates the value that you can create. It allows you to get more buy-in from the organization. It allows you to better understand what can stimulate and motivate your members. This was key for us. As soon as you demonstrate a small amount of personalization, it creates a halo across the entire experience, which is why we choose to do personalization at the front end of the journey. And that in turn means that you're delivering your mission in that more sensitive, empathetic way. And then we think about things as a content journey, not a customer journey. So it's less about transactional and simply what's the next right step forward. And this, again, if you feel overwhelmed by everything you could do, imagine what your members feel when they come to your site. How do we make that less overwhelming to them? And of course, give yourself permission just to crawl. It's okay. Some organizations, and we may never get to run, and that's okay. Because if we can get to a really good walk, we're going to be delivering that much more value to our members. Our business goals will be that much more accelerated, and our overall strategy will be fulfilled. And at the end of the day, another quick strategist cartoon, we always keep in mind it's the right audience with the right message at the right time in the right format to achieve your goal. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. If you'd like to connect with either one of us or talk to us out in the corridor, we'd love to talk to you. So thanks.
Okay. Well done, Jake and Ted. Ted, I have a question for you. You did say that the average age of the directors was 65 or something like that, okay? Not a digital archetype. And then you were talking about your delivery of your content. So how are you delivering it, or what's the most receptive way for the content to be delivered?
Yeah, so we had to architect a solution where we can maintain the traditional download my PDF. We actually tested wireframes of our new website in our biggest conference of the year, and people were like, oh, wow, it looks great, but I can still download my PDF, right? And we were like, sure. I mean, but that's not why we're here today. And And again, you know, we had to make sure that we weren't going to change them cold turkey. We had to bring them along on a journey of changing their habits. My colleague from the marketing department always reminds me that we've trained our members to open an email, click on a link, and download a report. And it's going to take time for us to say, click on a link and explore. And content personalization is a great way to get there.
Inspire the next click, I think was the phrase you used. I like that.